The sky is thick with haze, and the city is silent. You stand in your kitchen, staring at empty shelves, the last can of beans already gone. The trucks have stopped, the stores are stripped bare. In this moment, the world's most basic promise, food on demand, has been broken. You feel it first in your stomach, then in your hands, then in your mind. This isn't the movie. This is the mathematics of survival, and the countdown has already begun. You think you know hunger. Maybe you've skipped a meal, fasted for a day, or tried a trendy diet. But real starvation is not a test of willpower. It's a biological process, as cold and mechanical as a clock winding down. In the first 24 hours, your body burns through its glycogen, the sugar stored in your liver and muscles. You feel weak, maybe dizzy, but you can still function. By day 2, your body shifts gears, burning fat and producing ketones to keep your brain running. Some people call this keto clarity, but don't be fooled. This is your body's emergency mode, and it comes at a cost. Now imagine it's day 5. Your fat stores are running low. Your body starts to cannibalize itself, breaking down muscle, immune cells, even the lining of your gut. You're not just losing weight, you're losing the very tissue that keeps you alive. Your immune system collapses. You become a target for every infection. Your heart weakens, your mind fogs. Even if you find food later, the damage can be permanent. And it's not just about calories. Without vitamin C, you risk scurvy, bleeding gums, open sores, and eventually death. Without B vitamins, your nerves start to fail. These aren't medieval problems. They're the hidden dangers lurking in every can of beans and bag of rice that runs out. Think you'd be the hero? In Leningrad, someone just like you had to make a choice: feed their child or their parent. The science of hunger made that choice for them. During the Dutch hunger winter, rations dropped below 500 calories a day. People ate tulip bulbs, wallpaper paste, anything to survive. The survivors carried the scars for life: damaged hearts, stunted growth, even changes in their children's DNA. These aren't just stories, they're case studies in what happens when the system fails. But here's the real horror. It's not just your body that's on the clock, it's your mind. Chronic hunger rewires your brain. You become irritable, paranoid, even delusional. You snap at loved ones. You start to see others not as friends or neighbors, but as competitors for the last scraps. The longer the hunger lasts, the more your world shrinks to a single desperate question: where will the next meal come from? But even if you understand hunger, you're still doomed, because the real killer isn't in your body. It's on the highway, in the wires, in the systems that just failed. You stand in the supermarket, staring at the empty shelves. You always thought there'd be more food in the back, more trucks on the way, more time. But the truth is, the modern food system is a high-wire act, balanced on a razor-thin margin of efficiency. Every apple, every loaf of bread, every bag of rice is the end product of a global supply chain that depends on fuel, electricity, refrigeration, and the vast invisible army of workers. When any link in this chain breaks, the effects ripple outward with terrifying speed. Think your city is different? Let's look at the math. In a typical city, food is delivered daily by trucks that rely on a steady supply of diesel and the functioning road network. Warehouses operate on just-in-time inventory, meaning there's almost no surplus. If a disaster, natural or man-made, blocks highways, disrupts fuel supplies, or knocks out power, deliveries stop. Within 72 hours, store shelves are stripped bare. The illusion of abundance vanishes, replaced by panic and desperation. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina turned New Orleans into a food desert almost overnight. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic revealed how quickly supply chains can unravel, with empty shelves and food waste occurring simultaneously due to logistical bottlenecks. But the problem goes deeper. The modern agricultural system is a marvel of scale, but it's also brittle. High-yield monocultures, fields of corn, wheat, or soy stretching to the horizon, depend on synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, and genetically uniform seeds. These inputs are cheap and efficient, but they create single points of failure: A blight, a drought, or a supply chain disruption can wipe out entire harvests. The Irish Potato Famine of the 1840s is a classic example. A single fungus destroyed the main food source for millions, leading to mass starvation and migration. Today, the risks are even greater as climate change, geopolitical instability, and resource depletion threaten the foundations of global agriculture. That brittle system is the silent countdown timer over your pantry. When it hits zero, the biology we just talked about kicks in. Most people misunderstand the nature of food security. They believe that local stores or even home pantries offer a buffer against disaster, but these are mere stopgaps. The science of supply chain management reveals that efficiency has replaced resilience. Just-in-time delivery systems minimize waste and cost, but they also eliminate redundancy. There are no warehouses full of surplus grain waiting for a crisis. Instead, every link in the chain is optimized for speed, not durability. When one part fails, whether it's a missing truck driver, a broken refrigeration unit, or a closed border, the entire system seizes up. The consequences are immediate and severe. Perishable foods spoil, prices skyrocket, and black markets emerge overnight. Think you'll just grow your own food? Restarting agriculture after a collapse is a nightmare. Modern farms depend on fertilizers, pesticides, and machinery, all of which need fuel, spare parts, and global supply chains. Without them, yields plummet. Soil that's been farmed hard for decades may be dead, unable to support crops without years of rebuilding. Seeds from hybrid plants might not even sprout true. Livestock bred for high productivity can't survive without special feed or medicine. The idea of just planting a garden is a fantasy unless you've spent years building up the land and the skills. So what's the real plan? If you want to survive a real food crisis, you need more than a stockpile. You need diversity: grains, beans, fats, vitamins, and minerals. You need water, clean, stored, and renewable. You need knowledge, how to cook, preserve, and stretch every calorie. And you need a plan for when the first supplies run out. Foraging and hunting sound romantic, but in a real collapse, wild food disappears fast. The best survivors are those who can adapt, who know how to make do with less, and who can work with others to share the load. But the struggle doesn't end with logistics or agriculture. The next phase is even more insidious: the psychological and ethical collapse that follows when hunger becomes a daily reality. What happens to the mind and to society when food is no longer guaranteed? The answer is as much about human nature as it is about science. You think you're tough, you think you'd hold it together, but hunger is a force that distorts perception, erodes judgment, and tests the boundaries of morality. In the absence of food, the mind becomes a battleground where hope and despair, altruism and selfishness struggle for dominance. The greatest threat in a prolonged food crisis is not always external. It's the slow unraveling of the human spirit. Imagine yourself after 2 weeks without reliable food. Your thoughts are slow, your patience is gone, and every conversation feels like a threat. You start to see others not as friends or neighbors, but as competitors for the last scraps. In the Siege of Leningrad, diaries reveal how quickly social bonds frayed. People who once shared everything began to hoard, lie, and even steal from each other. In the 1972 Andes plane crash, survivors faced the unthinkable, forced to make choices that would haunt them for life. These are not just stories of horror, they're lessons in the limits of human endurance. The science is clear. Groups that maintain trust, communication, and shared purpose are far more likely to endure than those that fracture under pressure. In the Irish Potato Famine, entire communities were wiped out not just by hunger, but by the collapse of social bonds. In contrast, during the Siege of Sarajevo in the 1990s, neighborhoods that organized communal kitchens and mutual aid networks saw lower mortality rates and less violence. The difference was not in resources, but in the ability to maintain order and cooperation in the face of scarcity. But as the crisis escalates, ethical dilemmas become unavoidable. The question of who eats and who starves is no longer theoretical. Rationing, triage, and sacrifice become daily realities. In every major famine, stories emerge of parents sacrificing for children, of communities turning on outsiders, of leaders making impossible decisions. The lesson is not that people are inherently good or evil, but that extreme scarcity reveals the full spectrum of human behavior. The psychological toll is cumulative, eroding not just bodies but the very will to survive. Yet history and science both show that even in the darkest times, resilience is possible. The survivors are those who adapt, who find meaning in struggle, who maintain hope against all odds. The mind, like the body, can be trained through preparation, discipline, and community to endure the unendurable. But the psychological war is only one front. As hunger drags on, the body's defenses collapse. Malnutrition opens the door to infections that would be trivial under normal circumstances: tuberculosis, pneumonia, dysentery. The body's reserves are finite, and every day without adequate nutrition is a step closer to irreversible decline. The longer the crisis lasts, the more the risks multiply. It's not just about making it through the first week, it's about surviving the months and years that follow. But what if the collapse isn't just a fluke? What if it's the inevitable result of the way we've built our world? Now we confront the patterns that doom civilizations and the science that might save us. Zoom out far enough, and the story of food collapse is not just about individuals or even communities. It's about the rise and fall of entire civilizations. The science of resilience engineering and collapse theory reveals that societies fail in eerily predictable ways. They become brittle when they sacrifice diversity for efficiency, when they strip away redundancy in the name of profit, and when they ignore the feedback loops that warn of trouble ahead. In the context of food, this brittleness is magnified by the sheer scale and complexity of modern supply chains. The very technologies and efficiencies that have fed billions also create new vulnerabilities. Monoculture farming, for example, maximizes short-term yields but leaves entire regions exposed to pests, disease, and climate shocks. Centralized processing and distribution reduce costs but create single points of failure that can paralyze entire nations. Most people misunderstand the nature of systemic risk. They focus on individual preparedness, stockpiling food, learning survival skills, while ignoring the broader context. The reality is that no one survives alone for long. The science of complex systems shows that resilience is a property of networks, not individuals. When food runs out, the fate of the individual is tied to the fate of the community, the region, and the global system. Adaptation must occur at every level: personal, communal, and structural. This means not only preparing for immediate needs, but also investing in the long-term health of soils, water sources, and local food systems. The technical breakdown of large-scale resilience involves several interlocking strategies. First is diversification of crops, supply chains, and sources of knowledge. Polyculture farming, seed banks, and decentralized storage all increase the system's ability to absorb shocks. Second is redundancy, maintaining backup systems, alternative routes, and emergency reserves. Third is feedback, monitoring soil health, crop yields, and social indicators to detect problems early and respond before they escalate. The science of adaptive management, used in fields from ecology to engineering, shows that systems that learn and adjust in real time are far less likely to collapse. History supports these principles. The Green Revolution of the 20th century dramatically increased food production, but at the cost of genetic diversity and ecological stability. When blight struck monoculture crops, entire harvests were lost. In contrast, traditional farming societies that maintained a variety of crops and livestock were more likely to survive droughts, pests, and market disruptions. The lesson is clear. Resilience is not about maximizing output in good times, but about surviving the bad times. For modern society, building true food security requires a shift from efficiency to adaptability. This means supporting local farmers, investing in regenerative agriculture, and creating policies that value long-term sustainability over short-term profit.
It means rethinking urban design to include food production, water harvesting, and community storage. It means educating the public about the realities of food systems so that the next crisis is met with knowledge, not panic. But what does this mean for you right now? The answer is both practical and philosophical. On the practical side, start with your own household. Diversify your food stores. Don't rely on just rice or beans. Secure clean water. Store, filter, and harvest. Learn basic food growing and preservation. Even small skills matter. Build community ties. No one survives alone for long. Stay adaptable. Be ready to change plans as the crisis evolves. On the philosophical side, recognize that survival is not just about making it through the day, it's about holding on to your humanity, your hope, and your ability to adapt. The science is clear. Those who prepare, who cooperate, and who stay flexible are the ones who make it. The rest become footnotes in history. The haze in the sky, the empty shelves, the quiet, that's the world waiting for its new rules. Don't let the first rule be that you weren't prepared.